Have you ever noticed how the house grows quieter long before you are ready for the silence? How the sound of a closing bedroom door echoes differently once you realize it may not open again the same way? There is a moment in midlife that few people prepare for, yet almost every parent eventually encounters. It arrives not with catastrophe, but with achievement. Your children leave home. They step into their independence, their dorm rooms, their apartments, their new careers. You stand in the doorway proud, supportive, even excited for them. And yet, when the car disappears down the street and the routine that structured your days suddenly dissolves, something shifts inside you. This transition is often called empty nest syndrome, but the phrase can feel dismissive, as though the ache is trivial. In reality, it is a profound psychological and neurological event. For years, perhaps decades, your identity has been interwoven with caregiving, scheduling, mentoring, problem-solving, and protecting. Parenting created rhythm. It gave you built-in purpose. It organized your mornings and structured your evenings. When that scaffolding is removed, the emotional architecture underneath is exposed. In this vulnerable space, many adults encounter feelings they did not anticipate. There is pride, certainly. But alongside pride, there can be grief, loneliness, and a subtle disorientation that feels difficult to articulate. You may ask yourself who you are without the daily demands of parenting. You may notice that evenings feel longer. Weekends stretch open without soccer games, school events, or late-night conversations at the kitchen table. The brain, which thrives on predictable reward cycles, suddenly experiences a disruption. The small dopamine boosts that once came from helping with homework, resolving sibling conflict, or simply hearing footsteps in the hallway are no longer present. Stress hormones, such as cortisol, may increase as the nervous system processes change. In this neurobiological gap, alcohol can appear not as a threat, but as relief. A glass of wine becomes a marker of transition, a signal to the brain that comfort is available. It soothes the edge of sadness. It softens the silence. This is not a moral failure. It is a human response to loss and uncertainty. As addiction psychiatrist, Dr. Anna Lembke has often emphasized in her work on dopamine and modern reward systems, the brain is wired to seek balance. When we experience emotional pain or deprivation, we instinctively look for something to restore equilibrium. Alcohol temporarily increases dopamine, creating a sense of reward and calm. For someone navigating the identity shift of an empty nest, that effect can feel especially powerful. What begins as occasional relaxation may slowly become a ritual. What begins as celebration of freedom may quietly transform into avoidance of discomfort. The risk lies not in a single drink, but in the subtle pairing of emotional relief with substance use. When alcohol becomes the primary strategy for managing loneliness or uncertainty, the brain starts to encode that association. Over time, reliance grows, tolerance builds, and the line between social enjoyment and emotional dependence blurs in ways that are almost imperceptible at first. At first, the shift is almost invisible. You tell yourself that this stage is temporary, that you deserve to relax, that one more glass is simply part of unwinding after years of responsibility. Yet beneath that narrative, a quiet neurological recalibration is unfolding. The human brain is exquisitely sensitive to patterns, and when alcohol becomes consistently paired with relief from sadness or boredom, neural pathways begin to strengthen around that pairing. Dopamine surges followed by dopamine deficits create a cycle that is subtle but powerful. What once felt like a choice slowly starts to feel like a need. The silence in the house becomes louder in the late evening. The unused bedrooms feel symbolic. The calendar that once overflowed with obligations now contains blank spaces that seem to magnify internal restlessness. In this emotional vacuum, alcohol can slide from companion to coping mechanism without any dramatic warning sign. Midlife itself adds another layer of complexity. This period often includes career plateaus, aging parents, shifting marriages, and physical changes that challenge self-image. The departure of children does not happen in isolation. It collides with these parallel stressors. Grief related to role loss activates the brain's stress response systems, elevating cortisol and heightening sensitivity to perceived threat. When cortisol remains elevated, dopamine regulation becomes less stable, making reward-seeking behaviors more compelling. Alcohol offers immediate, predictable relief from that physiological discomfort. The body relaxes, the mind quiets. But the brain also records the transaction, discomfort relieved by substance. With repetition, the baseline level of pleasure without alcohol decreases, and ordinary activities feel muted. The evening walk no longer satisfies in the same way. The phone call with a friend feels less stimulating. Gradually, the substance that promised comfort begins to narrow the range of natural rewards that once sustained you. This is where suspense quietly builds, because dependence does not announce itself with fanfare. There is no single moment when you declare, "Now I am at risk." Instead, you may notice subtle adjustments. You start pouring slightly larger servings. You look forward to the first drink earlier in the day. Social gatherings feel incomplete without alcohol present. You rationalize that you are not drinking more than others, that you are still functioning, still working, still maintaining responsibilities. And yet, if you pause long enough to observe your inner landscape, you may sense that the drink is doing more emotional work than it once did. It is no longer just celebratory. It is medicinal. It is cushioning disappointment. It is filling empty time. It is numbing questions about identity and purpose that feel too heavy to confront directly. The danger is not dramatic collapse, but gradual erosion. Emotional resilience diminishes when every wave of discomfort is immediately dampened. The capacity to sit with loneliness, to explore new interests, to renegotiate identity within marriage or community, weakens when alcohol becomes the default regulator. This is the hidden midlife risk. Not that parents love their children too much, but that when the structure of parenting dissolves, the brain seeks substitute rewards with urgency. The tragedy is that the very substance used to manage transition can quietly deepen isolation. Relationships become more surface level. Sleep quality declines. Mood variability increases. And the quiet house that once felt peaceful begins to feel like a place you are trying to escape rather than inhabit. Yet this story does not have to end in quiet erosion. The same brain that adapts to alcohol can adapt to renewal. The same neuroplasticity that reinforces dependence can be redirected toward resilience. Empty nest syndrome, when understood as a legitimate developmental transition rather than a personal deficiency, becomes an invitation to reconstruct identity with intention. The silence in the house can transform from evidence of loss into space for deliberate growth. The key is not denial of grief, but disciplined engagement with it. Grief acknowledged moves. Grief anesthetized lingers. When you allow yourself to name the sadness, to recognize the magnitude of the role you fulfilled, and to honor the years invested, you activate prefrontal regions of the brain associated with meaning-making and emotional regulation. That conscious processing reduces the urgency to escape discomfort through chemical relief. Intentional lifestyle restructuring is not a vague concept. It is a strategic intervention. Structure must be rebuilt where it once existed automatically. Scheduling physical activity at consistent times stabilizes dopamine and lowers cortisol. Deepening friendships or cultivating new community engagement replaces lost social reinforcement with authentic connection. Exploring postponed interests, whether education, creative work, mentorship, or entrepreneurship, creates forward-looking identity anchors. The brain thrives on purposeful challenge. When you pursue mastery in new domains, you generate endogenous reward pathways that compete with substance-driven dopamine spikes. Over time, natural pleasure begins to recalibrate. Even small habits, such as limiting alcohol to predefined occasions or implementing alcohol-free days each week, disrupt automatic pairing between emotional discomfort and drinking behavior. These are not restrictive punishments. They are neurological recalibrations. Equally important is the ability to monitor warning signs with intellectual honesty. If social drinking has shifted into solitary drinking, if quantity has gradually increased, if alcohol is consistently used to manage stress or loneliness, Those are signals that dependence pathways may be strengthening. Awareness is not condemnation, it is data. Midlife can become a period of extraordinary self-audit, a time when accumulated wisdom is applied inward rather than outward. The transition your children are experiencing into adulthood mirrors your own transition into a new developmental chapter. Just as they are redefining themselves beyond childhood, you are redefining yourself beyond daily parenting. That parallel can be empowering rather than destabilizing when approached consciously. There is profound dignity in responding to this life stage with proactive health strategies instead of quiet avoidance. Seeking therapy, joining peer support groups, or consulting medical professionals if alcohol use feels difficult to regulate are acts of strength. They demonstrate alignment between values and behavior. They model to your adult children that growth never stops, that self-correction is honorable, and that vulnerability can coexist with competence. The hidden midlife risk becomes a catalyst for deeper authenticity. The quiet house becomes a laboratory for reinvention. The evenings become opportunities for reflection instead of sedation. When you confront loneliness directly, you often discover that beneath it lies unused potential, creativity waiting for expression, relationships waiting for deepening, and purpose waiting for expansion. The silence that once felt heavy can become spacious. The identity that once felt fractured can become integrated. The glass that once symbolized escape can become optional rather than necessary. This is not about perfection, it is about trajectory. Each intentional choice weakens the old loop and strengthens the new one. Each moment of presence builds psychological endurance. Empty nest syndrome is not a weakness to conceal, but a developmental crossroads to navigate deliberately. And in choosing awareness over anesthesia, structure over drift, and purpose over passive coping, you transform a hidden risk into a powerful midlife awakening. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.